Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young leader captivating Africa's youth. In Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, thousands gathered on April 30, 2025, at Place de la Révolution to rally behind Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the 37-year-old military leader who seized power in a 2022 coup. Sparked by U.S. AFRICOM Commander General Michael Langley's claims that Traoré's regime exploits Burkina Faso's gold reserves for personal gain, the demonstration underscored Traoré's growing popularity among young Africans. Far from weakening him, these accusations have bolstered his image as a defiant, anti-imperialist figure. But what fuels this fervent support, and why is Traoré being hailed as a new Thomas Sankara, a symbol of resistance? Traoré's appeal stems from his bold anti-imperialist stance, particularly against Western powers like France, Burkina Faso's former colonial ruler. Since taking power in September 2022, he has criticized foreign interference, accusing imperialist powers of using terrorism to destabilize the country and exploit its wealth. His decision to expel French troops and diplomats in 2023 and withdraw from Western-aligned frameworks like the G5 Sahel and ECOWAS signaled a radical shift toward sovereignty. These moves resonate with young Africans frustrated by decades of perceived neo-colonial influence. Journalist Sidek Abba, president of the Centre International d'études et de réflexion sur le Sahel, CIRES, notes, his anti-imperialist stance goes well with young Africans who are tired of the old system whereby African countries take orders from their former colonial powers. Traoré's fiery rhetoric, unburdened by diplomatic niceties, further endears him to a generation craving outspoken leadership. In speeches, he vows to restore sovereignty and pride to Burkina Faso, warning on April 1, 2025, that he will be merciless against those hindering progress. Reforms and populist appeal. Traoré's reforms have struck a chord with Burkina Faso's predominantly young population. Facing relentless jihadist violence that has killed thousands and displaced over 2 million, he prioritized security upon taking power. He launched massive recruitment for the Volunteers for the Defense of the Fatherland (VDP), intensified military operations, and bolstered the armed forces. While these efforts have not fully curbed insecurity, they've earned him widespread support for confronting a crisis that has plagued the country for years. Beyond security, Traoré has pursued economic sovereignty. In October 2024, he revoked foreign mining licenses, declaring, "We know how to mine our gold, and I don't understand why we let multinationals do it for us." The government also nationalized 2 gold mines, Bungu and Wagnian, for $90 million, aiming to ensure that Burkina Faso's resources benefit its people. Traoré's decision to forego a presidential salary, opting for his modest army income, has further cemented his populist image. Social media, particularly X, has amplified his reach. Artists, activists, and even African-American voices have rallied behind him, with posts praising his stand against imperialism. One X user wrote, "Captain Ibrahim Traoré is always the people's favorite, loved by every African due to his stance against imperialism and neocolonialism." His youth and revolutionary zeal draw comparisons to Thomas Sankara, the iconic Burkinabe leader assassinated in 1987, whose legacy of anti-colonialism and African unity still inspires. A controversial figure. However, Traoré's leadership is not without criticism. Daniel Izenga, a researcher at the Center for Strategic Studies for Africa in Washington, D.C., argues that his popularity must be viewed in the context of democratic backsliding. Since the 2022 coup, Traoré's junta has cracked down on dissent, targeting journalists, civil society leaders, and judges with violent repression, forced mobilization, and disappearances. Traoré is responsible for a spike in violent repression against his critics, Izenga says, noting that citizens calling for change have been kidnapped or sent to fight on the front lines. The security situation has also deteriorated under Traoré's rule. Despite a 70% increase in military spending, jihadist attacks have intensified, with over 100 soldiers killed in a June 2024 assault on a military base in Mansilla and hundreds of civilians massacred near Barcelona in August. Over 10% of Burkina Faso's population is now displaced, and thousands of schools have closed, leaving children without education. Izenga suggests that Traoré's increased defense budget may prioritize regime protection over battlefield gains or humanitarian relief. Traoré's pivot to Russia and Iran has also raised eyebrows. While he frames these partnerships as a diversification of allies, critics argue they come at a cost. Russian companies have gained mining concessions, and the promised security improvements have not materialized, with 2024 seeing some of Burkina Faso's deadliest attacks. Izenga warns that Traoré's rejection of cost-free Western security partnerships in favor of Russian ties may not serve the country's long-term interests. The Sankara comparison. Traoré's youth, military rank, and revolutionary rhetoric invite comparisons to Sankara, who also took power at 34 in a 1983 coup. Both leaders championed African unity and resisted Western dominance, but their contexts differ. Sankara governed during the Cold War, implementing Marxist reforms like women's empowerment and environmental protection. Traoré, however, faces a more precarious situation, with a fragmented army and ongoing insurgencies. Izenga notes that while Sankara's reforms aimed at systemic change, Traoré's junta contends with internal instability, having faced multiple coup attempts. Despite these differences, Traoré's symbolic acts, like foregoing a presidential salary and nationalizing resources, echo Sankara's populist legacy. For supporters, he embodies hope for a sovereign, self-reliant Africa. As Siddiq Abou observes, his youth, outspokenness, and imperialist stance are in line with Captain Thomas Sankara, whose popularity is not in doubt. A polarizing path forward. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's rise reflects a broader yearning among young Africans for leaders who challenge the status quo and prioritize national pride. His anti-imperialist rhetoric and bold reforms have made him a hero to many, particularly in Burkina Faso and across the Sahel, where frustration with Western influence runs deep. Social media posts on X highlight this sentiment, with one user noting, "He is the face of hope of what Africa can be." Yet, his authoritarian tactics and the worsening security crisis raise questions about his long-term impact. As Burkina Faso navigates its transition, Traoré's ability to deliver on his promises, while balancing sovereignty with stability, will determine whether he becomes a transformative figure like Sankara or a leader whose ambitions outpace results. For now, his star continues to rise, fueled by a generation eager for change.